break the mold, chasing the stories yet untold. Passion ignites like a blazing fire. Knowledge takes us higher, higher. Out of the box where the wild ones play, we see the game in a whole new way. Living loud, hearts in motion. Sports with soul, pure devotion. The field's alive with endless dreams. We're more than stats, we're the in-between. A slam dunk thought, a touchdown mind. Out of the box every time. No limits, no chains, no walls to climb. We're rewriting the rules in real time. Out of the box.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Old School. Although this one's kind of like old school / present day, because most of the time we do the old school, it's 01 Sixers or Mike Keenan Flyers, or we did the Buddy Ryan Eagles. Well, this time we're kind of going back in the day, but we're also kind of going modern because, we're going to look back at the Jeff Lurie years as far as, when he first bought the team and kind of where we got to where we are today, because Jeff Lurie took over this franchise and they were somewhat successful, but now, I think it's pretty safe to say that they're at the NFL's quote unquote big boy table. So we're going to get into it here. I got my usual cast, and I'm honored to have special guest Mark Eckel, longtime writer for the Trenton Times. And I know, also for WIP. I mean, Mark, I really appreciate you hopping on with us. I listened to you many times, with Angelo in the mornings, and got a lot of my football information from you. So I really appreciate you hopping on.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me on. I'm honored to be on with you guys.
Appreciate it. Man.
Thank you.
Yeah, so really appreciate it. But it's kind of funny because sitting here, at the top of the mountain, Super Bowl champs. I mean, first off, as an Eagles fan, for a number of years, I never thought I'd ever be able to say that, and now two-time Super Bowl champs. And, you as a guy that's been around, since the beginning, I'm a little curious, like what were your first impressions of Jeff Lurie when he bought the team?
Well, when he first bought the team, what he tried to do was not be Norman Brayman. I mean, Norman Brayman was kind of vilified here as an owner because, he got the nickname. I think Stan Hochman from the Daily News gave him the nickname "Bottom Line Brayman," because the thought process was that Norman, he wanted to win. Listen, every owner wants to win, rather win than lose. But that for Norman, it was more important to make money, perhaps, than it was to actually win a game. And you saw that when with free agent, he got Reggie White so upset that there was no way White was coming back to the team, and they lost. Yeah. Brayman did a lot of. He was a businessman that owned the football. So when Jeffrey bought the team, I remember like that first year or so, he tried to be like a fan basically. He wanted to be like the ever guy. I remember we were still at Westchester. Yeah, the training camp was still at Westchester back then. And Jeffrey actually like stayed in a dorm overnight a couple times, to hang out with the team and be part of it. I remember him like going out in a parking lot, throwing a football with the fans. Brayman would never. That was unheard of. I mean, Norman Brayman, Buddy Ryan nicknamed him the guy in France.
Yes.
Eagles had players holding out and contracts this and that, and Brayman was off in France at his villa that he bought. He was kind of an absentee owner in a lot of ways. He lived in Miami. And that's where he was in Miami business, a car dealer in Miami. I will be. I'm killing Norman Brayman. I will say one thing though. Brayman did keep the team in Philadelphia.
Right.
Yeah. True.
When Leonard Toews was forced to sell the team, he had a sweetheart deal with a guy named Monahan, and that guy was going to move the team to Phoenix. So Brayman did come in and save Philadelphia in a sense, but keeping the team there. But anyway, so Jeffrey, and we didn't know, really nobody knew much about him when he bought the team. I remember when the story broke that Brayman is selling to a guy named Jeffrey Lurie. He's a Hollywood movie producer. We're like, Hollywood movie. And then I remember talking to our movie critic, Joyce Persico was her name, very, very good movie person. How he went out there a lot and did a lot of. And I asked her about. She's like, I kind of know his name, but he's not a big time movie producer or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But we looked up. He had done like V.I. Warshawski was like his big hit.
Right.
Yeah.
With
Kathleen Turner.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was like, okay, he did that. And he did a couple other ones, but we really didn't know much about him. And then we found out, okay, he grew up in Boston. Then as me and a lot of other guys did our homework and delved into things, we found out that he wanted to buy the Patriots.
Yeah.
A year
Remember
before
that.
the Eagles. And Kraft outbid him or whatever. And so, Kraft got the Patriots. So the guy wanted to own a football team. There was no doubt about that. And the Eagles came for sale. But he was, like I said, he tried to be even though he's a millionaire, multi-millionaire, obviously, he tried to act like, hey, I'm just one of the guys. I'm gonna stay in the Norman, I'm gonna hang out. So that was my early thoughts about him. And then he started hiring people and getting rid of some people. And I remember this. He had his first two hires were Joe Banner, his boyhood friend from Boston, who he used to go to Patriots games with and sit in the stands and all that. And then he hired a guy named Jeffrey Auerbach, who was a friend of his from Hollywood. That he did out there, and I don't know if they did movies together, but Jeffrey Auerbach did other stuff on his own as well. So they were his two big hires, and you couldn't have two guys that were more different than Banner and Auerbach. And of course, I bet the wrong horse on that one. I got close with Auerbach, who didn't last real long. I think him and Banner hated each other. A lot of people hated Banner, so that was the early Jeffrey Lurie. And he fired Rich Kotite at the end. He had him for a season, fired him at the end of the year, which everybody saw. I mean, most owners were going to bring in.
Yeah.
And the fact that that was the year the Eagles started 7-2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Coach had that famous line about my record speaks for itself. And he lost his next one. Kotite made it kind of easy for Lurie to fire him.
Yes, he did.
He hired Ray Rhodes, which looked good for the first couple of years, and then that kind of went south. But so I'm with you guys. I didn't, Lurie was never a bad owner. I would never put him in that bad owner. I mean, he did his job. He kind of, he was new and a little wide-eyed at first, like a lot of owners would be. He was never. I would never call him bad. But now, as we look back, how many years later, he's become a very, very good owner. I mean, obviously, 2 Super Bowls. When you go to 3 and win 2, he went to 4 total. But in the last 8 years, going to 3 and winning 2, that's
not too bad.
That's pretty good, right?
Mark, I wanted to ask you. Remember when Jeff Lurie first bought the team, and he was going to hire Dick Vermeil, but I don't know exactly what happened. Can you dive into exactly what happened then?
I actually, I don't want to brag, but I broke that story that they were talking to Dick Vermeil. That's when he fired Kotite. To bring back Dick Vermeil, and they talked to Dick, and Dick wanted to come back. Well, the guy named Joe Banner got in the way.
Wow, really?
Yeah, Vermeil got. I mean, again, this is what I wrote, and no one ever told me I was wrong. And they would have. Vermeil just didn't see. I mean, when Dick Vermeil coached the Eagles back in the late 70s, early 80s, he ran the show. I mean, he had a general manager who just passed away the other day. But Jimmy's job was more like contracts and with the owner doing. He started the Ronald McDonald, like all those kind of things.
Yeah.
Jimmy wasn't drafting players. Jimmy wasn't finding players. Dick did all
Charity
that.
work.
Dick was a coach that, like a lot of coaches, Bill Belichick, that's been more current. But back then, I think it was more the head coach had more say and more personnel power. Not everywhere, but a lot of places. So Dick did all that. Well, Banner, Joe Banner was very involved. That's part of Jeffrey too now. I think Jeffrey, when he first bought the team, was a little more hands-on, even though he never came, he would never admit it. But I know from people that were in in the draft rooms and in personnel meetings, he was a little more of a meddler than people realize early on. I mean, as a matter of fact, a lot of people think that Mike Mamula pick, I mean, Mike was from Boston College. Jeffrey's from Boston.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm just saying. Not that, that was people, people fell in love with Mike at the combine and stuff, but, so I think he was a little more involved, a little more hands-on, and Banner certainly was. So that was getting back to your question about Dick Vermeil. Yeah, I think Lurie wanted Dick Vermeil. I think Dick Vermeil wanted to coach Eagles again. But I don't think he wanted to give, I didn't think he wanted Joe Banner running his team.
Hey, since we're talking about Banner, I was wondering, so many fans, kind of have, maybe because of the Brian Dawkins thing and the TO thing, a negative perception of Joe Banner. But, I often wonder, though, how different would it have been if they had won that Super Bowl in 2004? Because if you really look at it, I know he made a lot of controversial calls. But I mean, if you look at Banner's track record as far as like finding executives and finding coaches and stuff, I mean, they did have a long run of success. I often wonder if they had won that Super Bowl, if people would think more positively of it.
Sure, they would have. Anytime you win, people think more positive. My problem with Joe, and we had a lot of screaming matches over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Joe was a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
I said Raymond was a businessman. Well, so was Joe. But Joe thought, at least Raymond knew he wasn't a football guy and didn't care. Remember, Raymond invested in the Eagles, bought them for $60 million, sold them for $160 million. To him, that was what it was all about. Bottom line, Raymond. Joe made a lot of money for Jeffrey Lurie. A lot of money. Joe was involved in putting up the NovaCare complex where they practice every day now. Joe was very involved in Lincoln Financial Field and the funding for that.
Yeah.
Joe's problem was because he was a businessman, because he had an accounting background, he looked at players as numbers. I remember we would talk. You mentioned Brian Dawkins, right? Joe and I had so many screaming matches over Brian Dawkins where Joe would say to me, "Mark, he's only a safety. He's just a safety." And I'd say, and my comeback would always be, "Tell Jim Johnson that."
Yeah,
Exactly.
He's only a safety because he's not only he's the best safety that maybe in the last however many years. He's on the par with Ronnie Lott and Ed Reed and those guys. But Joe would look. Joe had books and Joe had formulas and Joe had history that would say safeties only make this amount of money, cornerbacks make this amount of money.
Wow.
He had it all. He had it all on spreadsheets like an accountant would do. And and Joe also had the rule: once you turn 30, you're done.
Yeah, I heard that.
Another
remember that.
Joe
Mark,
Banner.
the question I have for you is towards Joe Banner's last years with the Eagles, it seemed like he was, I guess, I don't want to say the front man, but I just think maybe being a season ticket holder, just the way he came off, I think he was just giving the Eagles like just I don't want to say a bad reputation, but was just rubbing fans the wrong way. Do you agree to that?
Oh, absolutely. Joe, and again, Joe and I said we had a lot of conversations, a lot of heated conversations. And that was part of he wasn't a people person.
Right.
And Joe just would have sat in his office and did the numbers and worked on things like the NovaCare complex and even the salary cap. Let me say this. I've said a lot of bad things about Joe. I'm going to say this. Joe Banner, I don't want to say invented, but started doing things salary cap wise that no one ever did before. And now every team in the league does things now that Joe did before they all did. Like in terms of like giving a signing bonus, big signing bonus, and then spreading it out over 5 years of a contract and saving you cap money. Putting in years like that. No, he was a math. I always said if I owned a business, I wouldn't want Joe Banner working for me, but I would never want to work for Joe Banner.
Well, I remember back then, like let's just say a guy like William Fuller, they brought in from the Houston Oilers at the time. I think his contract was up. They let him walk, and the Eagles just weren't paying the big names, like you said. I mean, the 30 years old mark was done.
Because Joe did a study that showed that most players after they turn 30
Right.
He treated players. I mean, I know I covered the league like for a long time. Every player is different.
Right.
Yeah, they are.
Jason Kelsey would not have been on the last couple's teams that he was on if Joe Banner was still in charge, because he would have kept him around that long. But Kelsey's a guy that actually got better in his 30s.
He went on, yeah.
There aren't many. Listen, for the most part, surveys were right. I mean, he didn't make this stuff up. He did it with background and history. But again, every player, you can't just say Brian Dawkins is a safety.
Mm-hmm.
More than that. You can't just say this guy's a running back or this guy. You have to look at it each case individually. I think I'm not in the NFL, but I just think that was he did everything as a business standpoint. But Jeffrey survived all that. And then Howie Roseman became the new Joe Banner, and that was an interesting call because Howie was more out of the Joe Banner school of a salary guy, an accountant type guy.
Right.
He wasn't he wasn't your typical general manager that most general managers that I've dealt with in the league. I would say 90%. They started off. Some of them played.
Mm-hmm.
Some played the game. John Lynch with the 49ers played the game for a long time. Or some at least played college, whatever. But they start off as a scout. They're a college scout. They scout the Southeast Conference, or they scout the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And then they move up and they become a director of scout, and then they become maybe a player personnel director or pro personnel, and then they become a general manager. You work just like a coach. A coach doesn't start off as a head coach. He's a running backs coach, and he's an offensive coordinator, and then he becomes a head coach. So Howie did none of that. Howie came in and be like Joe's assistant, and did the books, and then he became a general manager. And I think that at the beginning also, and Jeffrey's the guy that hired him, when Joe left. So he took a chance there and hired a guy that again was more of a businessman. But to Howie's credit, I think he's the opposite of Joe in a lot of ways, in that sometimes he keeps guys around too long.
Right.
I'm saying he's loyal. I think he's learned that a little bit now, that you can't, you have to put your feelings toward a player away sometimes, make the right decision. But he wasn't just getting rid of guys because they were 30 or saying this guy's old. He didn't have those same work spreadsheets that Banner used.
Yeah.
Mark, go ahead, Joe.
Oh no, I was going to say, you were talking about how Jeffrey and Joe had the guts to hire Howie Roseman, and even though there were some bumps along the way, I mean that's turned out to be a great hire. But I have another one because I remember like when they hired Andy Reid. I mean, I remember like listening to the radio and people were like, "Who the hell is Andy Reid?" You know what I mean? And now, you look at it all these years later, and now the guy's arguably maybe top 2 or 3 coach in the history of the NFL. I mean, do you have any insights as to how that went down?
Yeah, I know. I was through a whole. Andy wasn't the first choice. Jim Haslett was going to be the head coach of the Eagles.
I remember that. Yeah. Okay.
It was all but done. And again, people are going to think I just came on here to rip Joe Banner, but I mean, I just wrote a book with Hugh Douglas, and just turned it in. And Hugh talks about it in the book a little bit too. That the deal was done. The players all knew it. Haslett was going to be their next coach, and again, it was Banner. Haslett was the defensive coordinator for the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
And the Steelers were in the playoffs, or making a playoff run, and so he's even though he's going to become the head coach at Eagles, he's still trying to win with the team he's on, right? I mean,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
For Steelers, he has to do his, and Joe kept bothering him, kept calling him and texting him and bothering, to where Haslett just said, I don't think I could work for this guy. This guy's too much. I'm trying to, I'll be there when we're done. I'll be there. Leave me alone. So that
damn pest.
Kind of, and then so Andy was next on the list, I believe. There was a third guy. Chris Palmer was another guy that was.
Oh yeah.
He was Jacksonville's offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And I think the Eagles did interview him, but before that got serious, he took the Cleveland Browns job.
Right.
So then that left Andy as the lead guy, and Andy, I knew a lot about Andy because I followed the Green Bay Packers kind of close as well. So, and I knew Mike Holmgren. Like Holmgren loved Andy. Now he never made him offensive coordinator because he had Sherm Lewis, who was a long-time coordinator. But Andy was quarterback coach, but he was a little bit more than just. People say, "Well, he was just a quarterback coach." No, he was. From what I was told and from what I gathered, he was a little bit more than that. But he wasn't. He didn't call plays. Well, Holmgren called the plays, so it didn't matter who the plays was really. But Andy came in with that binder, that famous binder that everybody talks about.
And that was the one in the trash that Holmgren threw out, right?
Yeah. And he wowed him over, and like you said, the rest is history. And Andy, I'll say this about Andy. Again, Andy's a better coach in Kansas City than he was in Philadelphia.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Like if he never coached again after Philadelphia, I think he would have gone down as a good coach, a very good coach. He wouldn't be a Hall of Famer, and he wouldn't be, as you say, one of the top of all time. But he was a good coach. I mean, he won a lot of games, but he learned a lot. I think he learned from the mistakes he made in Philadelphia. And
Time management.
Excuse me?
Time management.
That was number one. Yeah.
Wasn't it that Andy just wore too many hats?
Yeah. And tried to control. He was. Well, here's a problem Andy had too. Andy's original staff here in Philadelphia was a really good staff.
Yeah.
He had Jim Johnson as defensive coordinator. He kept Harbaugh as his special teams coach.
Yes.
He hired Ron Rivera and Leslie Frazier, linebackers coach, cornerbacks coach. Steve Spagnuolo as I forget what Steve's first job was, secondary. On the offensive side, he brought in Rod Dowhauer originally, who was coach in the league prior. I think, Juan Castillo, he kept his offensive line. But that was a really good staff. He brought in tight ends. So yeah, I mean, and they were all young and hungry, and except Rod and Jim were old, and that was good because Andy was young, so he had his two elder coordinators that he could lean on a little bit, which he did. But then as those guys left, he didn't really replace them with the same caliber of coach, and I think that was Andy's downfall. That's why in my opinion, that's why his last couple of years with the Eagles were not nearly as good as his first 10 years with the Eagles because his coaching staff Harbaugh leaves, and I forget the guy they brought in to do special teams, but he wasn't any good at all. And then I don't remember. And then the all-time move, making Juan Castillo your defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Mark, I had a two-part question.
Sure.
Was Andy Reid's tenure too longer than what it should have been? And the second question is, did Andy draft Danny Watkins, or was that a Howie move?
I'll answer the second one first. Every move was Andy. Howie might have recommended him, but Andy got final say. Andy had final say. I'll tell you, this I know for a fact. That one I don't know for a fact, but I would, if you're asking me, Andy drafted everybody because this one I know. I forget the year because they all blend together, but it was the year that they drafted Nick Foles.
2012.
Okay, good. You're better than me with your 2012. That 2012 draft. Going to take a quarterback in that era, in that third round, somewhere around there, right? They wanted Russell Wilson. He went early. He was gone way before they could take him.
I remember that 76.
Now it comes down to, and this came from somebody in the room, so who told me the story as it right after that. They agree. All the scouts, Howie and all the scouts had Kirk Cousins as the guy. Okay. Well, Andy and I believe Marty Morningwood was his offensive coordinator at the time. Loved Foles. So, as a person that told me said, their picks getting near, but they agreed we're taking Cousins. And he said he left the room. I don't know if he went to the men's room, but he left and he came back. The Eagles pick came up quicker than they thought. And someone said something about Nick Foles, and he went, "What happened? Did did Cousins go? And they went, no. Andy pounded his fist on the table and said, we're taking Foles.
Wow.
So that I know, that is a true story. I know that as if I was there. And
Wow.
Andy had last call. Let's just say that. Did Andy last too long? Probably 1 year. If, maybe, I don't know.
Mhm.
Well, a lot of people forget his son, passed away this last year up at Lehigh. And I mean, God bless the man. I don't know how he coached under,
Right.
losing your oldest, your firstborn.
But I mean, it's today's NFL, or even that thing, and that was a long time ago now, but and I say this all the time when people ask me about certain coaches. It's not like the old days. It's not like Tom Landry, who coached like 100 years, or Don Shula forever in Miami, or all those guys that lasted forever.
Yeah.
I think the players today are different than players back then. Your voice gets old in a hurry. So yeah, you don't. And even if you do win, even if you're successful, I think there's an expiration date, and you need it. The players need a change, and look, hey, Andy needed a change, and he went to Kansas City, and he became a Hall of Famer. So it's not like Andy couldn't coach anymore. He just needed something different. Needed different players around him. And you can't, a coach can't get rid of 50 players. It's just but it's easy to get rid of a coach, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, the same thing happened with Mike McCarthy and Andy Reid. Mike McCarthy's tenure in Green Bay and Andy Reid's tenure in Philadelphia were very, very similar, except that Mike won a Super Bowl. Andy lost a Super Bowl. That's like the biggest difference. I think Andy went to one more championship game than Mike did. But they're very similar. And the same thing happened in Green Bay. Mike's voice just got old. Rodgers didn't want to hear him. Didn't listen to him anymore. So they had to make a move. The difference is Mike didn't have the success in Dallas, at least not the playoff success. Had regular season success, but didn't have the playoff success in Dallas that Andy had in Kansas City. Then again, Mike didn't have Patrick Mahomes either.
True.
Yeah, you mentioned. Yeah, I was going to say you mentioned Andy Reid, and as good a coach as he is, and finding Pat Mahomes and having Travis Kelce and Chris Jones don't hurt either.
No, listen. Andy told me this a long time ago, like one of his first couple years. I forget what I was. Oh, I was talking to him about how my homeroom staff, how he became a head coach, and that Gruden was a head coach at that point, and I think Morningweg was a head coach at that. There was like 4 or 5 of homeroom's assistants who were all head coaches at that time, all kind of new head coaches. And I asked Andy, what was the secret to that? How did you see it coming? Did you know these guys were going to be head coaches too? But and I'll never forget his answer was, it's all because of number 4.
Yeah.
Favre. Obviously, he said, he said, listen, I'm not here if we didn't have Brett Favre. Let's be honest. He said, Favre got me this job, and he got Marty the job, and he got Mariucci the job, and he got Gruden. So he was pretty honest about that. So same thing when you have that quarterback, that icon that can take you win Super Bowls. Yeah, it makes coaching a little easier and helps other guys get jobs.
Yeah, you could be a great coach, but if you got if you have I don't know like a Rex Grossman as your quarterback, you know what I mean? You better pray you have a great defense and a good running game,
Not even today, great. That doesn't work anymore. Baltimore won a Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer because they had a running game. That's not the way the game is today. That's not going to happen. You better have a quarterback. You can't win without a big time quarterback. Not anymore.
True. No, you can't. But hey, Mark, listen, I just wanted to thank you for coming on with us. I really appreciate you hopping on. Thanks for all your
stuff. I love a show called Old School. So anytime if you want me to come on and do Old School, I'm Mr. Old School. So
deeply appreciate it.
Yeah, that's kind of the thought. Like when we started this, we did Buddy Ryan, we did 01 Sixers, we did the Keenan Flyers. So
I covered Keenan Flyers.
What's that?
I covered all 4 years of Mike Keenan.
Really? Oh wow! Okay,
wow,
all right,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so
wealth of knowledge right there.
Mike came in together.
Wow,
he was a tough guy to cover too. Great coach, but
me
Well, where can is there any, where can people find you today, Mark?
On Twitter, Mark Eckel 08. I still do some writing here and there. I write for Jersey Man and Philly Man magazine. Comes out like 4 times a year. Matter of fact, I have a story coming out in the next issue, which will be out October 1st on Mike Quick, talking about old school.
No,
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Story on Mike and how he became the radio guy, and 28 years later, he's still the radio guy.
Yeah.
About his career as well. And I'm going to start up. I don't know all the details yet, so I don't want to get them out. If you go on my Twitter, you'll see the stories up there. A friend of mine just took over a football website, and starting Monday, I'm going to be writing for him. But again, I don't have all the details, so I don't want to put out long details. But just check my Twitter, and you'll see my stuff up on there.
Okay, great. Well, thanks a lot. I
Awesome.
Thank you.
For your time.
really appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much, Mark.
Thank you guys. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, bye-bye. All right, yeah, that was a lot of fun, man. I love those stories, and I used to listen to him all the time on WIP and stuff. You know, I know you guys did too. So, but anyway,
Pick somebody's brain. But go ahead.
Yeah, but we're not quite done taking the ride back in the DeLorean, because we have another special guest, the Godfather of Philadelphia football, the Hall of Famer, Ray Didinger. Hi, Ray. How you doing?
Hello, guys. How are you?
Hey, Ray. How you doing?
Good.
Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So we're it's kind of funny because we were talking to Mark about this, and I have the old school, and most of our subjects are the old school, but this is kind of modern day too. I mean, it feels so good to be, at the top of the mountain here, with the Jeff Lurie era. And, so I asked Mark this question too. I was just wondering, what were your first impressions of Jeff Lurie, like when he first came in? Because I know a lot of people were kind of wondering, like, oh, who's this guy from Hollywood?
Right. Yeah, I think there was a lot unknown about Jeff. Not to say people distrusted him, because he was replacing Norman Brayman, who was very unpopular. People were ready for a change. And their feeling was that this guy, even though we don't know who he is, and even though he's from outside the area, he's got to be better than Norman Brayman. So he rode in on a wave of public acclaim. But there are a lot of people who are saying, okay, fine, he's a different guy. He's not Norman Brayman, but who is he really? If you look at the history of Eagles owners, going all the way back to Bert Bell founding the team in 1933, the ownership was always Philly-based. I mean, Bert Bell was a Philly guy. Lex Thompson was a Philly guy. All the guys that were connected with the so-called 100 Brothers were all Philly guys. Jerry Wallman was sort of from Shenandoah, which is a little upstate, but he qualified. Leonard Toews obviously was from Norristown. He was a local guy. And Norman Brayman, even though Buddy Ryan called him the guy in France, Norman Brayman is from West Philadelphia, went to West Philly High, and so he's a Philly guy too. Jeffrey was the only guy who came from outside the area, and that was different. And yeah, you're right. I mean, there was a certain level of distrust. I know a lot of people, for no reason other than just worry, said, "Oh, he's out in Hollywood. He's making movies. He's got a studio out there. He's going to move the Eagles out to California." Jeff never said that. Never dreamed of doing that. But people were a little bit fearful that could happen. But he put it to rest very quickly. He said that I'm going to make Philadelphia my home. This is where I'm going to be. Yes, I'm in the movie business, but my first interest is football, and we're gonna take the Eagles and win a championship. And he made good on that promise. And 32 years later, here are the Eagles with a couple of Lombardi trophies in the lobby.
Yeah. Who would ever thought if like if I asked my grandfather, when he's watching like Wilt Chamberlain play Bill Russell or Dr. J versus Larry Bird, who would ever thought a man from New England would be probably the most influential owner in Philadelphia sports history? Yeah,
and he had very real Boston roots. I remember the first time I interviewed him, he had just bought the team, and he had just moved into his office, which was then at Veterans Stadium. and I interviewed him in his office. And behind his desk, he probably won't appreciate me mentioning this, but okay, it was 30 years ago. He behind his desk, he had a huge picture of Boston Garden.
Wow.
He had a huge picture of the parquet floor at Boston Garden, and that was the first thing you saw when he walked in his office. And after our conversation, it probably wasn't the most polite thing that I've ever done. I mean, I had just met the guy, but I thought just to try and help him out a little bit, I said, that's a really nice picture, Boston Garden, the floor with Celtics play, but and I know you're a Boston fan, and I know all of that, but you're in Philly now, and this is just my suggestion, but I would take that picture and I would hang it in your house, but I wouldn't hang it here because people are going to draw the wrong conclusions. And the next time I went in there, it was gone. So I don't know as I suggested, but I just thought in this town, being from Philly, understanding Philly, getting Philly is mightily important. And given the feeling that exists between Philadelphia and Boston, any hint that you might be a Boston fan, even if you're rooting for other teams, not Patriots, you're rooting, it's still probably not a good thing. But now, 30 years later, Jeffrey is fully a Philly guy, has made his home here, raised his family here, and he's brought a lot of glory to this franchise. He has made them not only the best team in the NFC East, he's made it the best team in the NFL. And that's something that no other owner was able to do, but he was able to do it.
Right. I want to ask you, we didn't really get into this with Mark, and it just dawned on me. How much impact did Christina Lurie have on the Eagles franchise when she was married to Jeff?
A lot. Back in the early years, when they interviewed coaches, when they interviewed prospective draft picks, that kind of thing, Christina was in the room. Christina was there asking questions. I know we talked to Andy Reid about that. And when he came in to interview for the job, it was Jeffrey, it was Joe Banner, a couple of other people from the front office, but Christina was part of it too. And not just sitting there, but asking questions. So she was very involved. And then became very involved in a lot of the charity endeavors and a lot of the charity pursuits of the franchise, and created a whole charitable wing of the organization, which she sort of oversaw. But no, she had a lot of say and a lot of influence.
Well, Christina Lurie, she was the one that changed from the Kelly to the midnight green, correct?
I don't know exactly how that went down. What we heard was that she didn't like the Kelly green, and that now whether she actually mandated that, you will change those jerseys, I don't know that. But I do know, I do know it's fairly well documented that she was not a fan of the Kelly green, which, listen, as a Philly native and a kid who grew up watching the team in Kelly green, I hated to see it go. I'm happy whenever they bring it back, on those occasions when they bring it back, because to me that's what the Eagles look like. That's when I first started watching them. When Tommy McDonald was catching passes and Norm Van Brocklin was throwing them, and Chuck Bednarik was playing both ways. Those golden days. That was the uniform that they were wearing then, and that's the one I've always identified with.
Right. Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
I know that's what I always think too, but it's and I feel the same way, but it's funny because they've technically had more success with these new uniforms, so it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, they have. They have. They've certainly, listen, these last 30 years pretty much have been the best era of Eagles football. Mm-hmm. They have been in the mix for decades now, and this franchise has never been that, and never had that sustained excellence, and it's very hard to do in the NFL today. But they've been able to do it, and you can credit the players, obviously, credit the coaches, certainly, But for a team to maintain that level, almost a 600 winning percentage over 3 decades, it says a lot about the overall stability and foundation that is represented by the front office and the guy up top. I mean, Jeffrey has done a great job. I mean, he has really done a great job. I mean, when he came here, he had a couple of things that he said he wanted to do. He was not happy with the vet. He felt that the Eagles deserved and needed a better facility. He also wanted to have their own practice facility, state of the art. Those are 2 things. And he wanted to build a winning team that could win on a sustained basis, not just 1 or 2 good years here and there, but a team that could win and continue to win over a period of time. And he delivered on all of that. I mean, he put the winning team on the field, but he also got a new practice facility and a new stadium built in the city of Philadelphia, where, cutting the red tape in City Hall in this town is not easy to do. But he and Joe Banner got it done, and they've totally changed the face of Eagles football, all for the better.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show, because I love doing the old school. And, with the Eagles, of course, Howie Roseman deserves a ton of credit. Of course, the Nick Sirianni, the players. But, particularly when I look at the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, they just trade Micah Parsons today, and you look at the mess that is their salary cap situation and the mess that they have. And then you look at the way the Eagles are run, whether it's and one of the main reasons I think Jeff Lurie deserves a lot of credit is because of the way he pays players. Howie wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things he did if Jeffrey Lurie wasn't willing to cut the check up front.
Right, that's true. And Jeff has done all of that, and it's very, very hard to win in the NFL if you have bad ownership. I mean, everybody thinks that the football team starts at the coaching level, and they often talk about, well, that's the football side, but then there's the business side, as if it's 2 totally different operations, and it's not. I mean, it's all one. And if you have bad ownership, that just filters all the way down. I mean, that owner might not be calling plays, and he might not be running with the ball, but he's influencing everything that happens underneath. And I mean, you'll never find a better example of that than Daniel Snyder. I mean, Daniel Snyder took over Washington, the then Redskins, who were one of the great franchises in the league. I mean, they were one of the model franchises. They were in it all the time. They had a great loyal fan base. They were a marquee team. I mean, they were on national television all the time. I mean, they were one of the top teams in the NFL. He bought the franchise, and within just a few years, they were down at the bottom, and they stayed at the bottom for his entire ownership. And that wasn't an accident. I mean, that was just a reflection. He took a really good franchise, one that had been among the best franchises for years and years and years, and very quickly turned it into a team that couldn't get out of its own way. And then when he sold and they got different ownership, then all of a sudden they turned around. That's not coincidence. I mean, bad ownership will result in bad football, and good ownership will give you a chance. It doesn't guarantee it, but it'll give you a chance to have a good football team. And that's what Jeff Lurie has done here in Philadelphia.
Right. When Chip Kelly got fired by Jeff Lurie, what was it, how he was removed, put back in the closet, whatever they say it was. What was it that rapport that Jeff Lurie, just to believe in bringing Howie back as the GM? The question is, what was just the rapport you believe, or Jeff could have went out and found another general manager?
No, Jeff believed in Howie.
That's what I'm saying.
Jeff believed in Howie. I mean, if he didn't, it was clear that Chip wanted to run everything.
Yeah.
And after his first year, when they were pretty successful, he was able to walk into Jeff's office and say, "Look, I want to run the football operation. This Roseman guy, if he wants to be negotiating contracts, doing stuff like that, handling the salary cap, fine. But I want him out of personnel." And at that point, it would have been very easy, and Chip would have just as happily seen him out of the building entirely. But Jeff didn't do that. Jeff talked to Howie about it. He said, "This is the situation. Chip wants to run things based on how we played last year. I think I owe him the chance, but I want you to still be part of the organization because you never know what's going to happen down the road." And to Howie's credit, I mean, Howie could have just said, "No way, I'm not staying here. It looks terrible. I mean, I've had to move to, the broom closet, as it were." And it could have been a real ego thing where he could have just packed his bags and left, and he would have gotten another job, but he didn't. I mean, he liked it here. And I think he knew there was a tacit sort of unspoken promise from Jeff that, look, if this thing with Chip goes sideways for some reason, you're going to be back in there. And it's exactly what happened. Chip ran the ship aground. And when Jeffrey sent him packing late in the season, the first thing he did was reinstall Howie as the director of football operations, and Howie went right back to work. And so that was, that was loyalty shown on both parts. It was certainly loyalty and trust shown on Jeffrey's part to make sure that he kept Howie in-house, and Howie in accepting his reduced role, but with the idea that if things change, and listen, in pro football, they change hourly, it seems, that he would get another opportunity, and he did.
Yeah, I mean, and what it begs the question, like, you got to think the Eagles might be the only team in football that would do that. Like, I can't, you look around this league, and some of these bad teams, they change general managers like they change their underwear. Like, look at like a team like the Cleveland Browns, or the Browns or the Jets or any of these teams. So, that's another reason why Eagles ownership deserves a lot of credit.
Sure. I mean, it really helps if you have stability. If you're changing constantly, you're not just changing the guy in the chair, you're changing philosophy. And you have to just reprogram everything top to bottom. And everybody comes in new, wants to come in and put their own stamp on the team. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it works, but sometimes it just actually takes you backwards. And the Eagles haven't had to go through that. I mean, they have had tremendous stability in their front office with Jeff, with Howie, with Don Smolensky, all of those people who kind of run the place have been in place all this time, and they've enjoyed great success. And they have a formula worked out. They know how they want to go about business. On a day-to-day basis, you go down there and you just kind of can feel the rhythms of the place.
Yeah.
Everybody just kind of knows what they're supposed to do. Everybody knows their job. They all go about doing it. And, the term that everybody uses now is culture. Establishing a culture within your team. And it's not just a buzzword. I mean, it's a very real thing. And every organization is trying to establish, and whether they need to or not, they will establish just by the virtue of doing their day-to-day work. You will establish a culture within your organization. You hope it's a good one. You hope it's one that allows you to develop a good, consistent winning football team. But sometimes it's not. And that's sort of about the way you do business, sort of about your business practices. It's about the kind of people you hire, about the kind of people you draft, the way you treat people, the way you carry yourself in the community. That's all part of building a culture. And some teams are really good at it, and the Eagles are one of them. And other teams just keep trying to reinvent themselves. Sometimes they figure it out, and sometimes they don't. And listen, in Philadelphia, we went through that period a lot.
Yeah.
We went through a lot of periods where the culture of this team was not the best. But now it is, and it's been for a long time. And it's one of the reasons why the team's been able to crank out, one winning season after another.
Right. As far as going back to 2005, I know a nightmare of a season that was, but do you think if things could have been done different between T.O. and the Eagles front office?
Yeah. I mean, what he wanted was he wanted his contract renegotiated. He felt that he deserved more money based on his performance in 2004. And he's 100% right. He did. but Joe Banner had a philosophy that, we're not about tearing up contracts or renegotiating. That's not the way we do business here. You signed a contract, we expect you to honor it. I think that's probably makes sense in most cases, but for every rule, there are the exceptions. Mm-hmm. And I thought with the difference maker that T.O. was and the impact he had, not just on the team, but in the whole city in 2004, and how instrumental he was in taking that team to a Super Bowl, getting that team to a Super Bowl, and then coming back and playing in the championship game basically on one leg. Yeah, he absolutely. If there was ever a guy you were going to say, I know, look, we don't normally do this, but I think this guy deserves it. And who could have argued against it? So yeah, I mean, they could have done that. And in the short term, it probably would have worked. I mean, he probably would have been happy, and everything would have been cool. It wouldn't have become the side show that it became. But T.O. is such a complex and volatile personality that it was going to blow up at some point. I mean, that's just the track of his career. So could they have gotten through that one particular year with everything kind of being okay if he'd just gotten the money? Probably so. But it was with T.O., it was going to be on a day-to-day proposition. That's just the nature of him. That was true for him in San Francisco. It was true for him here. It was true in Dallas and all of the other stops all the way to Canton, Ohio. That's just T.O. That's part of the package. You get all the talent, but you get that attitude too.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, that's where I wish Howie was the GM back then, because I think Howie that's the kind of move that I think Howie would have made. Because like Joe would let these guys go. As soon as they turn a certain age, or he had the strict business practice. But I feel like Howie Roseman's a lot more open-minded about stuff like that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Joe was pretty hard and fast about his approach to things, especially if you reach a certain age. We're not signing to a new contract. Joe was very good about a few things, and one of them was getting young players, really good players, identifying who they are, that these are the guys that we want to be part of our nucleus. These are the guys that we want to go long-term. Identifying those early, signing them to long-term contracts early at what are pretty affordable prices, so that when Brian Dawkins becomes the best safety in the National Football League, which he became, you're getting him and you compare him. I mean, his salary is way below a lot of the other guys that aren't nearly as good, but it was because the Eagles saw what kind of player he was going to be. They signed him early and got an all-pro player that fit very comfortably under the salary cap. I mean, Joe did that better than anybody. And for a number of years there, in those early years with Joe and Jeff running the organization, Joe really gave the Eagles a competitive advantage. He really did. I mean, at a time back then when the salary cap was not all that high. I mean, the salary cap was a real thing that you had to manage and massage every year, and a lot of us were bumping up against it. Not so much now. I mean, the salary cap is so high now, it's almost hard to exceed it. But back then, that wasn't true. I mean, back then, the salary cap was something that used to handcuff a lot of teams. Yeah. And Joe found a way to work around all that with some smart negotiating. Now, sometimes it came back to bite him, and Dawkins was a good example. I mean, he really thought that when Dawk came to the end of that contract, that I don't want to sign him for the kind of money that he wants at his age. I don't think anybody else in the league is going to offer him that kind of money, and he wants to stay here. He won't leave. Yeah. We'll get him at our price. And Dawk said, and Denver came along and offered him a lot more money than anybody expected. And one of the great players in the history of this franchise packed his bags and left. And that was, it was shortly after that Joe left the organization, because I think that one defection, everybody blamed Joe for it. In terms of public relations or how the team was perceived by the public, I don't think Joe ever recovered from that.
Yeah,
because Dawkins wanted to really stay here, and Banner thought otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, Dawk has said that. I mean, his plan was to finish his career in Philadelphia. but he felt that he was very hurt and very angry with the way the Eagles treated him. It was kind of like they put the offer on the table and said, take it or leave it. In the full belief that they didn't think anybody else in the league was going to offer that kind of money to a 30-plus-year-old safety. And they never saw Denver coming. And when Denver came in and made the offer, I mean, it was done like that, and he was gone. And that was a case where Joe just kind of, one of the rare occasions where he kind of misread the market, and it cost him a great player.
Hey,
go ahead,
Mike. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, what's a question I asked Mark earlier was, towards Joe Banner's end of his run with the Eagles. I mean, to me, it was like just, as a season ticket holder, not that I'm bashing Joe Banner, but it just, left a bad taste in a lot of Eagles, especially season ticket holders, males. Well, Eagles fans regardless.
Yeah. You mean the Eagles' decision to let Joe go, or the decision to let Dawkins?
Yeah, like you said, just the impression that Joe was giving off, just being very abrasive.
Yeah. I mean, and for the most part, if you had to grade Joe's entire tenure as general manager, you'd have to give him very high marks. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was instrumental in building the team that went to the Super Bowl and almost won the Super Bowl against the Patriots at Jacksonville. I mean, he built that team. And when he and Jeffrey took over the team wasn't very good. And it was not an easy turnaround. It's, teams, you see a lot of teams in that league, they just flounder around and never really get any better. They're bad. And you think, well, in time, they'll figure it out and they'll get good. Well, not necessarily. I mean, you have to do things right. You have to make the right decisions and push the right buttons to get that situation turned around. And the Eagles were able to do that pretty quickly. I mean, in the year 2000, they went, they became an elite team in that 1 year and never looked back.
Yeah, look. I mean, all you have to do, to give Joe Banner some credit. I mean, look at the executives he found. I mean, he found Brett Veach. He helped find Ryan Grigson, Jason Light. I mean, there's a lot of guys that he found that worked under him that became NFL GMs that even have Super Bowl rings.
Sure. And the coaches they hired. I mean, I think I look at Andy Reid's first staff, that he had. One of the great coaching staffs I've ever seen that they assembled. He inherited a couple of guys. He inherited Harbaugh. He inherited Castillo. He inherited a few of those guys. He inherited McDermott. But, I mean, they hired another bunch of coaches that I never heard of. Right. I kind of knew who Jim Johnson was, but, I mean, nobody thought of him as a coaching superstar. I had never heard of Steve Spagnuolo, Leslie Frazier, David Culley. I mean, all these guys, they were unknown to me, but they all came in and, man, that was a good staff. I mean, a great staff. And that's one of the reasons that Andy was able to have the success that he had, because those guys, Andy trusted the defense to Jim Johnson. He knew that he had a guy there that was really good at that. And so he just concentrated on the offense and the quarterback. And it was a great and productive partnership that they had. But they hired, and that's not an accident. You just don't all of a sudden just grab a bunch of guys and wind up with a great coaching staff. I mean, you had to research all of those guys, go sift through the candidates and pick this guy, and this guy. And they hit a home run on almost all of them. And if you look at the track of their careers from that point to today, I mean, they have all gone on and done great things. Like a whole bunch of those guys went on to become NFL head coaches and have done really, really well at it. So, and also one of the things that you got to give Jeff credit for is his hiring of head coaches. He has not had what you would consider a bad hire.
Yeah,
they have all won. There isn't one of those coaches like I know how the Chip Kelly thing ended. I know how the Ray Rhodes thing ended. But you look at every one of these coaches they hired, every one of them was kind of a bit of a long shot. I mean, Ray Rhodes was considered a long shot. Andy Reid was a huge long shot. Chip Kelly, nobody knew what he could do in the NFL. They knew what he had done in college. Doug Peterson, nobody knew what in the world are you hiring Doug Peterson for. And then Nick Sirianni, was complete unknown. And you look at all of those guys, and they've all come in and they've all won and they've all done really good jobs. And there isn't, there's no, and you're talking over a period of 30 years, you've hired a number of head coaches, ample opportunity to screw it up, an ample opportunity to make a mistake. There's an ample opportunity to hire a Matt Patricia as your head coach and just realize, oh God, we just made a terrible mistake. None of the Eagles coaches, none of the decisions that Jeff and Joe made would be considered that. And yet each of those decisions at the time came with enormous questions. Yeah. But they had the courage of their convictions and hired these guys, and they were all able to win.
Yeah. Thank God they didn't hire an Adam Gase when they hired Peterson. I remember I think their rumor was they were looking at him.
They were.
That could have been a disaster.
I think he was one of the finalists that they had brought Gase in, and there was genuine feeling around the league that I think he's going to be the guy. And nobody saw the Peterson thing coming. Yeah. Nobody. I mean, I remember I was doing WIP radio at the time, and we were on a Saturday. It was Glenn Macnell and me, and he was looking for a head coach. And so that was all we were talking about. People were proposing this guy, proposing that guy. And we had a guy call, and I still remember, he called in from Kansas City. And he said, I'm going to tell you right now who the Eagles' next head coach is going to be. We said, okay. He said, Doug Peterson. and Glenn and I actually, we laughed. And Glenn said something to the effect that, come on, you're joking. What are you pulling our leg? What is this, a prank call? Right. I mean, I didn't go that far, but I did laugh because nobody, there were a lot of guys interviewing for coaching jobs because there were a lot of vacancies that year, but nobody had even interviewed Doug on any of these teams. And all of a sudden this guy's calling in and saying, no, it's going to be Peterson. And Glenn and I just laughed and just sort of brushed him off. And it was like a week later that they hired him. And the guy called back.
Oh, that's so funny.
That's awesome.
I tried to help you guys. I gave you the scoop. I knew what it was. And then we kept them on a little longer. We didn't cut them off as quick. Right. And just asked him what was it that made you say that? And what he said was that I really think that, and it made sense. He said, I really think that after the whole Chip Kelly thing, the way that went down, that Jeffrey is going to want to go back to the Andy way of doing things. He felt that the Andy thing had kind of run its course, which it kind of had. And he tried something totally different with Chip, had some short-term success, but then at the end, it was pretty unhappy parting at the end. So, but that at that point, that Jeffrey was going to want to go back to the Andy way of doing things. And he wasn't going to get Andy out of Kansas City at that point with the success he was having. So this guy said he's going to see Peterson as Andy Light and a guy that can come in here with Andy's playbook, with Andy's culture, and sort of rebuild the team from within, the emotional intelligence factor. And he said, that's why I felt it was going to be Doug Peterson. And he was right on all counts. And Peterson came in here and, very quickly took the team to a Super Bowl and won it.
Hey, speaking of things that we never saw coming, I wanted to get your opinion on this one because I talk about to one of my buddies about this all the time. No one saw the drafting at Jalen Hurts coming, and I remember at the time, they kind of couched it by saying they were bringing him in as a backup. But do you think? I mean, it seems like it's kind of come out. Do you think that they just fell in love with him as a quarterback?
Yes. I think they saw the real potential in him. I do. I don't think that You don't draft a guy in the second round and say we drafted him to be our backup quarterback.
Right.
If you draft a guy in the second round, you're drafting him with the idea that at some point he's going to play. And I think at that point they were starting to have some doubts about Wentz. Certainly having doubts about his physical ability to make it through a season. So the idea of needing a good backup, a better backup than what they had made perfect sense. But the fact that they were just drafting him to be a backup, no, I don't think that was it. I think they saw in Hurts's, if you went back and looked at his career, one thing about him, he has always been a winner. And the improvement this was what I felt. I was initially surprised. I didn't expect it, certainly. But when I went back and watched the film of him from Alabama and watched the film of him in Oklahoma, the improvement that he made as a passer was dramatic. Look, the running ability and the other stuff the playmaking ability, he had that. But just his ability to set up and throw the football, he was so much better at Oklahoma. And my thought was, if you're looking at this level of improvement, he's gone from here to here, and given his work ethic and determination, I don't think he's done improving. I think he's going to keep working and go from here to here.
Mm-hmm.
If he does, you're looking at a guy that can start and win games in the NFL. And that's exactly what he's done.
Well, Ray, just to go back to the Ray Rhodes era, I don't think a lot of people realize that John Gruden and Sean Payton were on the Ray Rhodes' coaching staff at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they were. There were, people don't know, very few people remember that Tom Coughlin was an Eagles assistant coach. He was on the Marion Campbell staff.
Wow.
And there's a guy that went to the Giants, won 2 Super Bowls. And he was an assistant coach here in Philadelphia at one time. So, there were those guys. And they've had some really, really good coaches here. And I think that I think Sirianni has put together a very good staff as well. Everybody knows who Jeff Stoutland is at this point. You certainly should if you're paying any attention. What he's done with the offensive line here. But throughout, I think it's a very good coaching staff. If you watch practice, you see what good teachers these guys are, and you see players develop when they get here, and that's to tribute to the coaching. It's one of the things about the pro football that surprises me is how, when you watch teams in practice and you watch teams in training camp, if you go around the league and you watch how other teams go about their business, I'm always surprised at how often you see teams that don't really try to develop the players. They don't really try with the idea that I can make this guy better. It's sort of like in high school, you just assume that you're going to try and make guys better. That's what you do. And in college, you do kind of the same thing. But there's some coaching. There was a strain of coaching when guys get to the NFL, that's what they are. And so you're going to teach them a system. You're going to teach them the playbook. You're going to coach them some basic stuff. You're going to coach them that stuff. But the idea of on a day-to-day basis, trying to work on him and improve him as a player, most coaches don't do with that. They just deal with the X's and O's part of it, and they don't deal with the idea of developing players and making them and taking a guy he's good enough to be in the NFL now, but he could be better.
Right.
We coached him better or harder, and a lot of teams don't go that extra step. But the teams that do are better for it. And Andy's staff was really good at that. Mm-hmm. And this coaching staff is also very good at that. I think that you see guys come in here and they do improve. Some of them come in and they're the finished product. Devontae Smith walked
right,
in, and he was a pro the minute he stepped on the field. He just that's what he was.
Had it.
But there are other guys that come in here and you see them dramatically improve. And that doesn't happen by accident. That's a product of good coaching. And it's one of the things that allows a team to be consistent and win year after year.
Yeah, that's probably why. That's one of the reasons why New England was so good all those years. I mean, look at them. They didn't even really. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of their drafts weren't really that great, but they would get, they turn an Edelman from a quarterback to a wide receiver, or they get the kid, I can't remember his name, the kid that played lacrosse, the other wide receiver. Drawing a blank on his name, but you know what I mean. Like
not to interrupt, Jeremy Bloom.
No.
For the Patriots.
I forget. It was maybe like a Chris Hogan or something. I think might have been his name.
It was.
But,
that was his name.
Yeah, but
Chris Hogan.
yeah, but yeah, just one last little question before we get out of here. Like, because we're talking kind of about the past, but as world champions, I mean, obviously, we're opening up the season this coming week. What's kind of like your outlook on this Eagles team? Like, concerns and I mean, how far do you think they can go? I mean, do you think they can, make another run?
Oh, sure. I wouldn't go so far as to flatly predict it, but but to say, could they go on another run? Yeah. I mean, I will say this. After the preseason, I have some concerns. I think they're still trying to figure it out in the secondary. They have to find that other cornerback. They haven't to this point. Ringo, I think, was the guy they were hoping for. He didn't show them enough to win the job. Jackson kind of has it for now. I don't know if he's good enough to hold it. If you look at Vic Fangio's press conferences, whenever he's asked about Jackson, he doesn't exactly give him a ringing endorsement.
No, he doesn't.
What he'll say is, well, he's the guy for now, and I think that's what he is. I think there's very likely that by week 4 or 5 it'll be Bennett. I think he's going to. It won't be too deep into the season, and I think he wins that job. They still have to figure out what they're going to do with the other safety position. The offensive line, I'm concerned. I've had, Mailata's missed a lot of time with the concussion.
Right.
Dickerson, who's a guy who has a long history of knee injuries.
Yes.
Coming into this season with a knee injury. Juergens is coming off back surgery. Those are all things that I worry about, because for all the things that the Eagles had last year and all the things that went right and allowed them to have the season they had, it really all started on the offensive line. That's really the power source for this team, is the offensive line. And I worry a little bit because you got a couple of key players now that are coming into this season not 100%. And watching this team in the 3 preseason games, you can say they're only preseason, and they are. But I didn't think the offensive line, the guys they had out there, didn't look that good to me. I mean, at the feeling watching that offensive line together, and again, it's preseason, I understand that, but there wasn't, watching those guys, there wasn't the feeling that, if something happens and they lose Dickerson, or something happens and they lose we'll be okay, because this guy and this guy, they could step in and play. After watching these guys in the preseason, I'm not that confident that if one of your key guys, one of those, the big 5 goes down, I don't know that they have that guy that can step in and play. That to me is a concern, and I'm a little worried about the edge rush. The backup edge guys they brought in. They didn't show me that they can win the one-on-ones.
Okay.
So I wonder. I think that Jahad Campbell's going to be very good. I think that he will probably, because of the situation, looking for the edge rush, I think he probably will play that role a lot, and I think he'll be good at it. But a couple of the free agent guys they brought in, Uchi and the kid from the Giants, I was a little disappointed. I expected more. And the other thing that really is a worry to me is who's going to be your punt returner. I think they thought it was going to be Smith, but that didn't work out.
Well, they brought not to interrupt you, they brought what's his name back from last.
Michi?
No, Covey, Britton Covey. They
brought Britton Covey back
for the practice squad.
All right, well, that's all right. I mean, the one thing I don't want is to see that on next Thursday night, when the Cowboys are lining up to punt, that Cooper DeJean is back returning punts.
Yeah.
Don't say better.
He is too valuable.
Thank
He
you.
is too valuable. He does too many things, and he's too big a part of your defense to risk him as a punt returner. And I know he did it. Look, I know he did it last year because they were in a pinch, they were in a bind, and he was pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But he's too valuable as a defensive player to have risk him on punt returns. So if it's Covey, if whoever it is, fine. Give me another answer other than Didinger, because you need him right now. He could be playing 3 positions on your defense. Okay,
Yeah.
but the one position I don't want to see him playing is punt returner.
Right.
Yeah. And any concerns on Zach Baughn's back? I mean, like nobody's really said anything about it, but like everything you read is he's barely even practiced all preseason.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I've seen him asked about it, and he just kind of poo-poos it. And I know the way this organization is. I mean, they don't ask those guys, the real key veteran guys, to do a whole lot in the preseason, which to me is a little bit of a concern because you got to be ready to play the real games. And sometimes I think Nick backs away from that too much. But listen, you can't criticize him. I mean, he did win the Super Bowl, but this is going to be, to your point, Joe, what you're asking about my feeling for the season. I've given you some of the reasons why I'm a little bit concerned. And the other part of it is that their schedule is brutal.
Yeah,
it is brutal. So,
Wow.
I mean, are they still the best team in the league? If you had to do a power ranking thing, probably most people would put them number 1. You probably should. But they have some issues, and that schedule is really rough. And I think they're good enough to get back. But I don't by any means think it's going to be easy. I think it's going to be a challenging year. And, they could start this year 2-2, and there'll probably be a lot of unhappy people out there. But remember, last year they started 2-2 and won the Super Bowl. So, but I think they're a really good team. And on offense, they have a very good quarterback who just was Super Bowl MVP, but still feels like he's got something to prove. And he's got some great playmakers, the receivers and the running back. So, this is a team that's going to move the ball and score points. And I think Fangio will figure out what he has to figure out on defense.
Right. How many wins would you predict?
I wouldn't go crazy on this. I would probably say 12. I would probably say 12.
I was saying 11 or 12.
I haven't seen, has Vegas set a number yet, an over-under for them?
No, I haven't seen it yet. No.
I think it's I'm not 100%. I think I saw like 10.5, 11s. It's right around there, which kind of tells you about the schedule. I mean, if you look at the whole NFC, I mean, look at what the Packers just did today, getting Micah Parsons. I mean, but if you look at like NFC North is loaded, our division's going to be better. Like, the Giants, everybody says the Giants are terrible, but if you look at the Giants, their defense could be top 5, 10 in the league.
I think the Giants are going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, I know it's preseason, but I saw their game against the Jets and I saw their game against the Patriots. And I think the Giants are going to be pretty good.
Yeah, it's scary.
I'm going to tell you something right now that'll probably shock you. I think the Giants are going to finish ahead of the Cowboys this year.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to win 14 games, but I saw them, and that defensive front is good.
Mm-hmm.
But that guy Williams, man,
and that defensive front is really, really good. Neighbors is a terrific receiver. He is a legit deep ball threat, and Russell Wilson can throw the deep ball. And I think the Giants are going to be pretty good. I mean, as bad as they were last year, you wouldn't think that in 1 year's time they could jump forward like that. But I mean, they look legit to me. Watch what's going to happen in week 1. Watch what's going to week 1. They go down the line. They play Washington in Washington, and everybody's assuming that Washington they're on the come, and Daniels is a great quarterback, and that's all true enough. Watch that game.
I was going to say,
I would not be at all surprised if they go down there and knock Washington off. And the following week they play Dallas in Dallas, while the Cowboys are still trying to put things together. they could win that game. They could be 2-0 with 2 division wins on the road.
Wow.
And so, again, I'm not saying that this is a return to the era of Parcells. I'm not saying that, but I think everybody's sort of discounting the Giants given their history. I wouldn't do that this year. I think the Giants have a chance to be much improved.
What do you think of the quarterback? The kid Dart.
Jackson Dart.
What do you think of him?
I like him a lot.
Yeah, it's scary.
I like him a lot. I mean, I saw him play in college, and I thought that he had that sort of
He could
game.
swing that ball at Ole Miss.
He could, that he.
Flag.
I didn't think that he was going to step into the NFL and be in over his head. I mean, he looked to me like he had an NFL arm and the confidence and the moxie to play. And he's demonstrated that up in New York for day one. Now, it's Russell's job for now. And listen, if the Giants get off to a really fast start and they're in it at midseason, they're not going to make a quarterback change. They're going to ride Russell as far as they can. But at some point, Dart's going to play. And I think he's going to prove to be everything they thought Daniel Jones was going to be. You know, everything that they drafted Daniel Jones to be and thought he could possibly be, everything this whole picture they kind of drew about what he was going to be, never was. I think Dart will be. I think he's going to be. I think he's the guy that's going to play a while and win a lot of games up here.
Yeah, it's scary because I mean they could be a year away. I mean, we could be going in the next year saying, "Boy, we got to worry about the Giants." You know,
never know.
I think the needle is definitely pointing up for that team. And like I said, watch week 1. I mean, they're going to be big underdogs because everybody loves Washington. They're playing at home and all. Watch that game because if the Giants win that game. I think that's what their intention is. When you have a season as bad as theirs was last year, you want to get that thing turned around in a hurry the next year. Almost like Andy's team when they went to Dallas and won that game in 2000 to set the season in motion. Nobody thought they could go down there and win that game, but they did, and that's what got the whole momentum of that season turned around. I think the Giants are looking at this game in Washington as the same kind of game that could be a springboard for them. So, I think that the Giants are going to be. I think they're going to be much improved. I think they're going to be a pain in the neck, frankly.
Yeah, I know. I hate here as a guy, as all of us. We, being Eagles fans, we probably hate the Giants. So I hate hearing that. But we could be looking at a Philly-New York rivalry coming back.
Could be. I don't know how far away it is, but they definitely look better. And I know. I've been around long enough that I know you cannot judge a whole lot by preseason. I mean, you could really get fooled by the preseason. But sometimes you look at it and say, yeah, they're playing really good, but that's not legit. I mean, that's I didn't feel that way watching the Giants. I saw a team that looked really poised. I mean, I'll tell you that pass rush, woo, they're good. Carter looks like he's going to be really good. I mean, I like right away.
Oh, I know schedule-wise, it's week 6. They play the Giants. They go to Minnesota, and we play the Giants again. So we see them 2 out of 3 weeks, right? I think right before the bye week.
Yeah, I mean, a lot could change. I mean, Wilson could get hurt, or he could just play poorly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a while since he played really well. I mean, he didn't do well in Denver. He sort of burned out in Pittsburgh. But I don't know. I mean, he looked pretty good this preseason. And the combination of he and Neighbors, I think, has a chance to really click. And, if you can get a pass rush and they got a pass rush, you get a chance every week.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Ray, thank you so much for hopping on. It's been a blast. I love doing this old school show and loved having you on. I really appreciate it. I know you have a new play coming out. Where can everybody see you?
Yes. Okay, good. Thank you for mentioning that.
I was going to bring that up.
Yes, that was very nice. I have Tommy and Me, which has been around Believe it or not, this is the 10th year of Tommy and me. My play about me and Tommy McDonald. This is year number 10. And we're bringing that back to the People's Light Theater in Malvern in October the 7th through the 19th. So check the People's Light website and you can get your tickets for that. But before that, I have a new play, a world premiere play called Spinner, which is going to be at the Delaware Theater Company down in Wilmington. Really nice theater right off 95. We're in rehearsal now. In fact, after I leave you guys, I'm hitting 95 and driving down there for rehearsal tonight. We open September 17th and we run there October 5th. So it's a play about ice hockey back in the rough and tumble era of the 1970s. And it's a little bit of a departure. It's certainly different than Tommy and me. But we have a wonderful cast with some great actors. And I'm really excited about it. So Spinner at the Delaware Theater Company, September 17th through the 5th of October. And then Tommy and me at People's Light in Malvern. I hope that people can come out and see one or both.
I'll be like we already talked. I'll be coming out there in October to see it, and
I know.
hopefully
Mike,
get to meet it.
Yeah, Mike, you said you were coming out to see Tommy and me. You haven't seen it yet, right?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well,
I've been wanting to see it for years.
I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll enjoy it. The same actors are back, which I'm happy about. And then Spinner's a whole different deal. But I think it's going to be a really good play. I'm really excited about the cast, and Delaware Theater Company is a tremendous venue. So if people come out, they'll have a good time.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And yeah, I love anything that's old time hockey with the fighting in the 70s and all. You know, it's I think that'll be great. So thank you,
Joe. You will get a big taste of it that night. So please come out.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you
guys.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Great to be with you. Take care, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right. Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye.
See ya.
Great
It was
stuff.
so much fun.
No, we can talk to Ray for hours.
I know. Yeah, I know. I know. I could have kept going. I was like, well, you know what? He's probably got somewhere to go, but no, it was a great time. Yeah, I mean, hey, it's great. Great looking back, and then and then knowing we're at the top. You know, I mean, as Eagles fans, we're not used to being at the top. I have to admit, because obviously I'm not a football expert. I mean, Ray's the football expert, but I know myself, like just looking at the Giants, I'm a little concerned about them. So hearing him say he thinks the Giants might be good kind of really has me concerned.
I think they had a solid draft, like Jackson Dart, Cam Scott,
Yeah.
Abdul Carter, and they have a weak schedule in the division, and it's always those teams that improve it have those weaker schedules the following year. And like I said, it don't matter if you're 8-0 and the team's 2-6 in the division. You could throw the records right out the window because at least in the NFC East, it's a heavyweight fight.
Yeah, well, look at last year. I mean, the Browns were freaking terrible, and they found a way to beat Baltimore once. So that's any division.
The Eagles struggled against Cleveland here early in the season.
Yeah. So, but no, it's great time tonight. Thank you so much to Mark Eckel and Ray Didinger for coming on. It was an absolute blast. I love doing these old schools. I think we had talked about it, guys, with the pennant races coming up. I mean, this one's about Jeff Lurie. I think the next one we're going to target doing is probably about a month from there. What do you guys think of doing the 07 through 11 Phillies and do the Ryan Howard, Chase Utley, Victorino and them cats?
Sure.
All right, let's see. Because right now, unfortunately, I think last I looked, because we were busy doing the show.
5-3.
What is it?
5-3, 3 home runs.
Oh,
Schwarber, Realmuto, Kepler.
Well, thank God, because the last time I looked at the score, it was 3-0 Atlanta. And because it's funny with the Phillies. My boss texts me. He goes, Aaron Nola. I'm like, oh shit, he's getting shelled. And then I looked down.
Meatballs, brother. Like I said.
Yeah, so they were losing 3-0, and I guess I guess here, hang on. Here's my man, Paul Spencer. We are going to do this one. Paul Spencer says Cowboys next, old school. I am going to do that. I would like to do that eventually, the 90s Cowboys. And by the way, even though we're Eagles fans and we hate the Cowboys, I think it's an interesting story. And but that Netflix, did you guys see the Netflix on the Cowboys, America's team?
I heard something was coming out.
Yeah,
I have yet to see it, but I'm probably going to watch it tonight. So.
I'll tell you what, as a guy that hates the team, obviously,
you don't love them?
No, but it's a very interesting story, and as I mean, hey, I love sports history.
Hold on, let me get the tears out of my eye.
Need a box?
Yeah.
What's that?
Does Sean need a box of tissues?
Yeah, no, I think the Cowboys fans do after hearing Parsons left. But go ahead, Joe.
What was that? What was that, Eddie? Didn't Eddie Murphy have something where he goes, "Would you like a tissue?" or something? What was that? What was that from, bro? You remember?
It was Eddie Murphy role.
Oh, there you go.
Imitating Michael Jackson. He said, "Tito, please pass me a tissue."
There you go. I was trying. Yeah, I was going to say. I get them confused.
You did that pretty good.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, listen. Thank you for everybody for checking us out. And like I said, in about a month, we're going to do the 07 through 11 Phillies. So get ready for the pennant race, and we will see you all in a month. See you guys.
Take it easy.
Getting strong, let's break the mold. Chasing the stories yet unfold. Passion ignites like a blazing fire. Knowledge takes us higher, higher. Out of the box where the wild ones play. We see the game in a whole new way. Living loud, hearts in motion. Sports with soul, pure devotion. The field's alive with endless dreams. We're more than stats, we're the in-between. A slam dunk thought, a touchdown mind. Out of the box every time. No limits, no change, no walls to climb. We're rewriting the rules in real time. Out of the box where the wild ones play.